excited about this because it's a topic that is very close to my heart as a writer. Creativity is your best friend and sometimes your enemy, depending on the day. So what we're going to do is we're going to do intros and then we'll jump into the topic. So I'll start. I'm Janice Davis, and as you can tell, I'm excited to be here. I'm running on adrenaline. I need lunch and water, but we'll get through this. Okay, I'm Janice. See, man, too many panels. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I am an author. I wrote a video game thriller called The Holders Dominion. I'm also a columnist for MMORPG.com. And I am a moderator for Wizard World and San Diego Comic Con. And I also do voiceover work for MMORPG.com. And I'm the founder of The Gamer in You. It's a website about debunking stereotypes. So that is me in a nutshell. Eric?
Hi, I'm Eric.
Hi, Eric.
You already heard that joke before.
Yep.
I'm running low on jokes. That's it for today. My name is Eric Kyron Davis. I'm the senior producer and creative director for The Holders Dominion, along with many various video game companies out there in the world, such as Radioactive Labs, Blizzard Entertainment, and another one. I looked at my LinkedIn, it's all on there. I also have a development and production company that I put together about 12 years ago that does scripts of all kinds, cartoons, web series, video games, movies. We've got 2 TV shows in the works right now, a couple cartoons, a couple web series, a couple more books. Doing a lot of fun, creative stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully somebody likes it. And I absolutely love talking about creativity and inspiring creativity.
Yay! Alex.
Alex Raffi, I'm creative director for Managing Communications, actually locally here in Henderson. Been around for about 15 years. I've written a children's book on called The Sheep County Dream. I co-wrote and illustrated a university-level textbook called Critical Thinking, where we used cartoons to illustrate arguments. It was really interesting because I think a lot of cartoons in there and comics and stuff, and it was used for something that's kind of unusual. I also co-wrote with another author a documentation of American gestures. That's not really out yet, but there's a heck of a lot of them. And it took about 5 years of just doing that kind of research, so that was kind of interesting. And I do a workshop called Creative Courage, where we talk about creativity and how to develop creativity in the workplace. I've spoken to high schools and colleges and a lot of businesses about it, and it's a topic that's very important to me, and I think it's really interesting, so I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say.
Yay! Daryl.
Is this on?
Give your total.
Okay. I'm Daryl Skelton. I'm an artist. I've done a lot of stuff your parents probably enjoyed. In fact, I'm old. I started out back in '73 as a fashion illustrator for a couple of years. Had a local comic strip, came out west, did a lot of freelance work. And in 1982-83, I did the Dallas comic strip. There was a TV show called Dallas. You've heard of it? Okay. And did that. I forgot. But anyway, or as Billy Graham said, a sinner shot you. But I did that for a couple of years for the LA Times Syndicate. Went over and did some stuff for DC Comics early on, the Blue Beetle, Batgirl. Then took some time off and went into doing mural work with a friend of mine, the late Rick Parks. And we did a lot of work for Donald Trump, including his bedroom ceiling. So I know of at least 3 wives have seen that work. Then went back, did some more stuff for Marvel Comics right after the Infinity Gauntlet. I did a lot of cleanup work and issues there. And somebody in Chicago, in Denver, last year dubbed me the Forrest Gump of comics. Anytime anything really good was going on, I was nearby. And went over to DC Comics in '93, did Star Trek Next Generation for a couple of years, some Wonder Woman, some of the big books, and a comic book about Prince, which oddly enough has become kind of a cult favorite. And so now I also do editorial cartoons, and I go around to conventions and try not to embarrass myself too often.
I love it.
Too late.
Yay, awesome. Well, before we jump in, I want to remember to tell all of you that we are absolutely here for you. I really want to get that across. And so if there's anything that we say or we do that you want to ask a question right then, feel free. To shout it out or raise your hand. I don't want you to have to wait until the end if it's something that we're talking about and you really want to say, hey, I do that, or what about this? So definitely know that we're here to answer anything, help in any way that we can. To go along with that, I feel like as artists and creators, we do spend a lot of time alone. And it can be really lonely, whether you're writing or sketching, or drawing. And that can be tough. I feel like sometimes I'm chained in solitary confinement for hours, and I need people. I think teams of people are so important for inspiring and keeping creativity going. So just to make sure we cover that. And if you wouldn't mind, I'm curious, can we raise our hands if are there any writers in here? Yeah, writers. Are there any artists? All right, this is awesome. Filmmakers. Yeah. Photographers. Awesome. So see, that's awesome. So we have all kinds of artists here. I want to make sure we cover all of our bases and answer your questions. So to jump in, we're going to start with where we feel creativity comes from. How do we get inspired? And we'll just go down the line if that's okay with you guys. For me, I go back to that quote that is from the movie Robots, where they said, see a need, fill a need. And that really spoke to me because for me, I saw this gap between my two circle of friends 12 years ago, between my video game friends and my non-video game friends. And I realized that we spoke different languages, and we would say things in gaming terms that if you don't play an online game, for example, you wouldn't necessarily know what a raid is, or a tank, or a DPS, or something. And so for me, I got inspired to be creative and become a writer because of Final Fantasy XI. That was my first online game 12 years ago. And so for me, that's what inspires me. What about you?
What inspires me, where it comes from.
We'll
jumping around.
either one.
I like it. It's jazz style here. Where does it come? Where do I think it comes from? I think it comes from a little deep, dark place inside your brain, and I think it's usually inspired by something you've seen or you've been around and that you're super passionate about. And so I think because we're all creative in our own daily lives and everything. At your job, you come up with a creative way to solve a problem. With your family, you come up with creative ways to solve a problem with your family. But I think to your point of passion, it comes from a place of passion, and creativity is such an usually emotional journey in a lot of ways. That it just spawns from deep inside you, usually to tell a story or draw something beautiful or inspire somebody else or make your mark on the world. Right, there's something that comes deep down inside, and I think it's somewhere in between emotions and your soul. There's somewhere in there that's creativity.
I like that, Alex.
Well, my description is a lot less romantic. As a creative director, my job is to inspire creativity in a lot of people, in general, on days where they're not very inspired, and you have to find that inspiration. So I've developed kind of a theory on how this works, and it starts with understanding that creativity is learned, it's remembered. We were all creative, very creative when we were young. And as you grow older, it starts to diminish. And the war begins when you try to fight off the walls of doubt that happen, that kill creativity. So I guess in just trying to describe it, I see it as awareness, and an awareness we all have to have when we try to find an idea. And there's ideas are like tokens, right? They're just out, they're everywhere. They're all around us always, right? And bear with me. We have our conscious and our subconscious mind. Our conscious mind is constantly working on building ideas and solving problems, because creativity in general is solving problems. Your unconscious mind, though, is always awake and always aware. It's the thing that always hears everything around you, but you can't control it, but you can program it. Okay? So the job of a creative is to learn how to program their unconscious mind, and you can do that with choosing values. So everybody here on the panel decided they liked something. And when you decide you like something, you are programming your subconscious mind to pay attention now. And as you go forward, and every time you hear, like you say, I want to be a guitar player, even when you're not paying attention, somebody's playing guitar, your subconscious mind is taking note of that. So when you sit down and actually work on playing guitar, your subconscious mind starts doling out these little tokens, and then you start putting them together. And you get a horse, and you get a bird, you put them together, you make a Pegasus. That's creativity. And those little things are tokens. And so creativity in general, as far as I'm concerned, is an awareness and an openness to be able to take in the data and be able to process that data. So.
I like it. Daryl.
Lately it comes from my wife, who says, Daryl, why don't you go and do something? And so yes, I will. Just a second, this is about over.
It's the last scene.
That's pretty much it. No, seriously, well, not even seriously, but differently. It goes back when I was a kid, I was a late bloomer in just about everything, which is, I just realized it's kind of awkward bragging about at this point. But I started out, and when I was a kid, I liked Superman on TV. And I thought I invented the comic book, because I started drawing it. Because I saw stuff in the newspapers all the time, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if they like this? And then I found out there really were comic books. And I was quite young at the time, like 3.5, so give me a break. And so what I did was, once I found out there were real ones, I would look at them. And the real epiphany for me came when I was 4 years old. I saw a Zorro comic book drawn by Alex Toth. And I didn't know, it just looked so different to me. It wasn't really representative art, it was more graphic. Like, Alex Toth would just do black blotches of ink, and they'd slump some green on it, and that was a bush. And I thought, you're supposed to draw the leaves and everything. 4-year-old critic. And so I went along, and after Alex Toth finished his run, there was a guy who was more representative in his work. And I was like, that's what Don Diego looks like. That's what a tree looks like. That's what, and it looked, but I kept going back. It was a guilty pleasure. I kept going back to the Alex Toth stuff. And that's when I realized I liked the storytelling. This is what I want to do. And so I just did it, and I told everybody in school, I'm going to draw comic books someday. And so I just went and did it. It was no big, I just thought everybody, when they were like 4, decided, I want to do, this. And
how could you not want to?
Right. Until when I had a son, and he was little, he said, I want to be an Easter bunny or a cowboy. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I went along and found that the creativity, a lot of it came from just having a skewed view of things a little bit in the world. And not being afraid to do that. Flash forward to my senior year of high school, they had a play from the spring musical, Little Mary Sunshine. And I didn't really read the play or anything, and so I just did a banjo player with a gay 90s uniform on. And for those of you not old enough, gay 90s was a term that was normal. And anyway, I did that, and a classmate of mine walked by, and we all did our posters for Little Mary Sunshine. That way, they got free posters, and they put them in storefronts around town. And she came up, and I felt her breathing, and she said, everyone did a Little Mary Sunshine poster. You did a Daryl Skelton. And the little light went on, and I realized I still had all the information you ever wanted to know about that play. How much it was, when it took place, where it was. But it was something that was not just different to be different, although that can be fun, but it was just different enough to attract attention to where they got to that point. And so later on I started doing ads for a pizza place. And we ended up getting a response, a 90% response or better, over Pizza Hut, Godfather's, all the others, just because they were just so weird. But you got all the information that was there. But, we did a lot of things. We did series. There was a guy named Yule Gibbons at the time who did commercials about grape nuts, and he would walk around. He was one of these naturist guys. You can eat a pine cone and get vitamins from it and stuff. And so I did a Yule Gibbons one saying, you meet your newspaper. I call it Reader's Digest. But at this place, and we went through it in the ad, and it got quite a following. And so I found again, don't be weird just to be weird to say, but something that would help a client, help out someone else. And that way, if you can find these people, by the way, it's amazing. I did stuff for Fitzgerald's Hotel here in town for years, and they kind of just let me go and do what I wanted to, and it really paid off for them. They got very good response from all of their things. Matter of fact, the first time I did one, and this is before computers, like most of my life, I guess, and I did a map, a treasure map for a slot tournament. I painted it in watercolor, and it was all detailed, and I charged them like $1,000, which back in 1980 or whatever was a lot of money. And I was called into the office by the vice president and said, don't ever do this again. It looks really nice, but don't ever do it. Well, they had such a huge response from that thing. He called me back into the office and said, you can do this whenever you want. Because it wasn't so much that I was all that brilliant, but I could do that at home all the time. I did brilliant stuff in my room by myself all the time, which is mostly legal. But the thing is, if you can get somebody else that will allow you to do that, that's the key.
Yeah, and I've heard other artists say something similar, where creativity can come from anywhere, whether you're trying to, whether you see an artist that you're looking up to and you want to do something different, or you want to kind of do a different style. I thought of just now Rob Pryor. He's an artist here. He has a booth here, and he paints with two hands. And he told me that that's something that he just started doing when he was young. He doesn't know why. And he said, but for creativity, one of the things that's really important for him is environment. He always has to have headphones on. Like, for some reason, that really helps him paint, is if he has music, and loud and blaring. And sometimes he'll do paintings on stage with live bands. Isn't that right? And so one of the things that, he has always told me that he really likes about this panel is that we talk about the toolbox, the artist toolbox. And he always says, make sure, that you give examples to artists like the music, because for some reason that just helps me paint. So I want to, jump in with the toolbox, the artist toolbox. What can we do as creators? What should we write down, little notes? That way, if we do get stuff, for Rob, it's listening to music. For me, my environment is really important. I really like being in a space that is quiet, my phone's off, I have paintings up, pictures, things that inspire me. So for me, I can't just be anywhere to write. I want to be in a place that I don't get interrupted by left-right things. What about for you, Alex?
Well, I actually, you see, being inspired is important, but the idea of why is important. For me, it's kind of where I was always thinking about it. I think that everybody has, any kind of creative person in any kind of way, shape, or form, has a moment of discovery, where something happens in their life, or they draw something and it actually looks like something, or they experience something and they know something. It's almost like they touch something special, and then they realize it. So whenever you're in a situation, everybody's had that moment. Everybody here has had a moment, whether you can or can't draw, where you discovered something that was special that made you who you are. So it doesn't even have to be about art. It can be literally anything. And a great way to inspire yourself is to surround yourself with memories of those things. Whether it's a picture, it's an artifact from something that happened. That's why whenever you see graphic designers or artists, they have a lot of toys and strange things around their desk, because those are the things that touch them. You know what I mean? A lot of us guys that are my age, our moment where our heads exploded creatively was when we first saw Star Wars. So a lot of us have Star Wars stuff around, because that reminds us of when we were a child, we had nothing. We couldn't, and all of a sudden you saw it, and we were in outer space. So that's important, is finding your moment of discovery, and then attaching something to it, and surrounding yourself, and reminding yourself of that, because you need to fuel yourself. Waiting for inspirations for amateurs. You can't sit and wait for it. You have to make it happen for yourself. If you're serious about being a creative, you don't have time to just sit and wait for something to hit you. You need to get it and take it and make it happen. That's why you have to learn how to identify. I mean, people like you could come up with an idea instantly because you have so many options in your head. Exactly. But I, like, as an example, you could say, I can tell you right now, picture a hummingbird, striped, red and yellow stripes, put a top hat on it, put a cigar in its mouth, and an eye patch. And everybody can picture that in your head pretty instantly, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing if you really think about it, because none of us have seen that before. That is your mind. That's how powerful you have a powerful thing in your head, a squishy thing in your brain. It's amazingly powerful. We only use a portion of it on a regular basis. And I think you need to think of it as having like this superpower best friend next to you all the time.
I like that.
It's almost like you have this, and you just forget to tell him, hey, what do you want to do today? You just ignore him most of your life. And he's just sitting there waiting for you to tell him what to do. And then that's kind of, I guess, I don't know what your question is.
No, it's about environment. And I like how you said, you surround yourself by the things that inspire you.
Yeah.
You mentioned Star Wars. I know you wore the shirt yesterday, Jurassic Park. Didn't you say that filmmakers were inspired by Jurassic Park because of the...
Yeah, that was another big one. So I've worked with a lot of folks that come from visual effects, and the big one for them, and maybe age as well, but the big one for them was the Jurassic Park. They're like, I want to make dinosaurs look like that.
Besides the age thing.
Hey, you never know. And so for me, it was animation. I love the animation world. So for me, it was Toy Story, and then everything Pixar started doing. But that's exactly right, what I try to surround myself with. And I would say the environment, some people like it quiet, some people need it loud. The environment I work in is very, very chaotic, so I'm very impressed with the artists that get things done around me when I'm not bothering them every 3 to 4 minutes to see how things are going. But they're able to work in that environment because it's it inspires them every time they have to meet with somebody or talk to somebody about something. It kind of kicks them into gear, and that's what it is for me. Like I get inspired being around people, interacting with people. I can go away and I can do whatever it was that was in my head, and I go back around people, and that's why I'm big with things, people.
Daryl, do you have tools for the artist toolbox?
Really, the only thing is looking at stuff that inspired me probably when I was a lot younger. Seeing the pure pencils of Jack Kirby. If you want to be an artist, or especially do comics, you cannot look at his pencils and not get really, whoa. Because growing up, you didn't get to see that. You got to see it after people like Vince Coletta got a hold of it. But if you see the raw pencils and the creativity and the notes he had in the margins, you realize, I don't know how many of you ever got a chance to see him draw, but everything was in his head. He would just start out in the upper left-hand corner, well, for you guys here, and just draw down shapes. No shapes. He's the only guy I've ever seen not do that. I do all the shapes and everything and fill it in, but it was just like his pencil would throw up and it would just come out of there. It's a lot better than it sounds. I mean, it would just come out and it would be very powerful. And then later on, when I got into doing more advertising stuff, I would see other, advertising illustrators. And when we go back and you see artists from, long ago, Lawrence Altavima, just look at that stuff, and I guess I get inspired. I don't end up drawing like that or painting like that, but just seeing that, what other people did, it's just really amazing. But a lot of it is sitting around, and I don't know, I'm nowhere near Jack Kirby's universe, but the idea of just sitting around and thinking. And it took my wife a while to get used to the idea that I'm working right now. You're watching TV, but I'm working. And most of the time that's true. And I sit there and think, and you get ideas coming, and what's funny is you'll start out, I got a great idea. And you start drawing it, and it's not exactly what you wanted, but then it takes a little turn. And you start doing other stuff. Yeah. And that's what's fun. It's like you think you're in total control of it, and I guess you are in a sense, but you just find yourself going off in different directions. For a lot of artists, when they're young, it starts out, I don't know how to draw hands, so everyone has their hands in their pockets or their war victims. Later on, you learn how to draw hands, and that takes you another step. So what do I do with these hands? What makes it interesting?
And Alex, you're going to...
what he's saying, I've developed a thing called the creative arch, where I talk about when you're working with a lot of people, your job is to find a solution, right? It's a creative meeting, you're looking for a solution to a particular thing. And my thing about the conscious and subconscious mind, and knowing that your subconscious mind, you don't control it, and knowing that it doles things out to you. Sometimes during a creative meeting, for whatever reason, your goal is to find an ad for a power, like some kind of drink or something. And a Gilligan's Island episode pops into your head. And you're in a creative meeting, or something strange pops into your head during a creative meeting. And you don't know what it is, but you don't say anything because it's not relevant to the meeting. That's your unconscious mind hinting to something. In our office, we go off tangent constantly because I'll start talking about something totally strange that has nothing to do with anything, and it'll inspire somebody else to think of something, and we're all grown-ups, and we're all heading in the same direction. It's not like we're going to fly off into something and all of a sudden get off topic. But you start to follow these things, these little tokens that you're getting, and then eventually something happens. And then pow, you get an idea you never even thought you would reach. And on your own, you do that on your own because you're not intimidated by anybody else, right? Because you're on your own. So and creativity is about courage. It's having the courage to be able to reach for something and fail. And when you fail, you just know where your barrier is. Failure is the best thing that can happen to you as a creative, because then you know how far you can go. When you fail, you learn. And when you succeed, you're inspired to try further and go further. And I think that there's a fear of failure that is the biggest obstacle. And any successful creative, they're the most courageous people I know, because they're the ones who are not afraid to reach and keep going and look stupid, and they just laugh it off and they just keep going. And people say they suck, and they're okay with that, and they listen to people that say they suck, and they're not mad at them. They listen to them, what is it about it that this guy thinks sucks? And then they go ahead and see how they can do it better. And you know, when you let your ego get in the way and you start being judgmental of the people that are critical of you, that's a problem, because you're never not learning. And that's the important thing. People, when you're an artist, the entire world is a judge. There is no professional. I mean, there are people that are greater artists than others, right? But it's because they're open and they're always growing, and they're still growing, and they're still going forward. The entire world's your judge. You need to listen to it. It's important.
I love what you said about not being